our very first keynote will be Maeve on cracking the Silicon Valley code. Big applause for Maeve.
Hi, everybody. It's really nice to be here. Or I should say, Gut Morgen, Uppsala. Right? So I'm from Ireland, and my name is Maeve Neefsey. I'm co-founder of a company called Cloud KPI. So Cloud KPI, it's an analytics solution designed specifically for software as a service businesses. So that's the market. And what we do is we identify their most valuable customers. But I'm not going to talk about my product, but I am going to talk to you about our experience of going to the US market as our first market. So we are European. I'm from Dublin, and we decided that our first market was going to be the US. And when you think about that, you say, gosh, that's a big market to challenge, right, to go after. So we raised 150,000, and I can hear you saying that's not a lot of money to crack the US market, and you'd be absolutely correct, it is not a lot of money. But we hustled our way through it. So we made that money stretch and stretch and stretch. And I thought it'd be useful to tell you about how we did that. Now, even if you're not thinking of going to Silicon Valley or the US market, I think what we learned from the way they help one another, the way they improve the overall ecosystems for technology companies, can be adopted by European countries, but also by different towns and cities in America. And in fact, we've been raising 1.5 million, and we just cracked it. We're nearly at 1 million now, and hopefully we're going to close the round in a couple of weeks. But it was a challenge getting there. Like, it was 3 years, ultimately, getting there. So hopefully I can share some insights that might be useful to you. So the first thing we did is we said, okay, if you're going to build a product for the big companies, the SaaS companies of the world, whether they be Salesforce or whether they be a smaller organization, you've got to figure out, well, if I design this product for maybe a medium-sized, successful Irish SaaS company, the needs that they have are going to be very different, probably, to the needs of some of the bigger, more successful ones. So let's build our product for the most successful companies, and then we can outdo everybody else. The competitors will be coming behind us rather than ahead of us. And so we said, let's look and see what's going on in the world. Where are all the SaaS companies? And so it became really... Oops, sorry, go back one. Oh, we missed one. Okay. So it became very clear that the States was the most important market. And the reason is because 48% of all SaaS clusters are based in North America. So a huge chunk of those SaaS companies are North America. So then we said, well, where in North America? And wham, you can see it there, California. So California is just incredible numbers of SaaS companies. So with our 150,000, we said, how are we going to start cracking that? And both my co-founder, Brenda Jordan, and I are entrepreneurs. We've done this before. And we've made the mistake of having far too much work going around trying to talk to the right people and wearing out our shoe leather, rather than focusing in and saying, well, who are the important people and how can we get to them quickly? So, luckily enough, in Ireland, they have an organisation called Enterprise Ireland to promote Irish companies who are going to export their products overseas. And there's a program there called Access Silicon Valley. And Access Silicon Valley basically helps you kind of land in Silicon Valley organised, understanding the culture, understanding when somebody says, I'm really excited by your product, they're not really interested at all. So there's a whole lingo that goes on in Silicon Valley that you have to learn not to get excited by. And when they meet you and they say they're super excited, they're not really super excited. So there's key words that you learn about. Things like, I'm super excited, I'd like you to meet my partner. That means they're really interested in your product, okay? So we got a whole prep for a whole week just learning about the lingo, learning about how the community works, learning about the language, learning about how investors will or won't invest in you. And then when we went out there, we had prepared. We did lots of work through LinkedIn, identifying the right people to speak to. So we had 3 weeks intensive getting in front of the right audience, finding out about whether SaaS companies needed our product. Because what we didn't want to do was decide to go to the US and find they'd already solved the problem. So were they struggling with their metrics? So when I talk about metrics, it's things like churn, lifetime values, customer acquisition costs, all of those metrics we automate rather than you having to build them yourself. So when we got there, the great news was, yes, they have the problem, they haven't solved the problem, and they're looking for a solution. So for us, that was a huge insight. So then we came back, and that's us coming back, trying to decide, are we going to do this? Can we do this? We only have 150,000. Are we insane? And we said, look, we can't not do this, because otherwise somebody will do it better than us, and we'll be gone. And so the decision was, how will we focus? Should we go to New York, where there's a lot of SaaS companies, or should we just plunge ourselves into the most expensive ecosystem in the world, which is Silicon Valley? And so either we're brave or we're stupid. We said, we're going to go for this. So we went out there 2.5 years ago. And what I learned about that culture is that there's no point in going out there if you have any doubt in your mind. Even if you have to fake it, you must think you're going to be number one. So they don't want you to think you're going to be number 2 or number 3. You got to be number 1 because, you know, confidence and, you know, the focus on being number 1 is it's going to win out. It's going to convince everybody to be your customer, to be your investor, to help you. And so when you're out there, I don't know if any of you see that. Do you know the comedy Silicon Valley? Anybody know the comedy Silicon Valley? Yeah. Okay. It's exactly like Silicon Valley. It's not a comedy. They're totally insane. You know, they sulk if they've lost $1 million because they're maybe not part of the $1 billion club. So it's seriously like that. But, you know, you have to get into that mindset as well in terms of understanding where they're coming from if you're going to convince them to be part of your journey, if you like. And so I just thought, you know, if you know Jeff Bezos and if you know Benioff, all of these guys, you know, really believe they can change the world. You know, and the reason, for example, Bezos bought Washington Post is because he felt he had to make a difference in the world's democracy. So, you know, big ideas, big thoughts, we're going to be the king. So we started the mantra for ourselves saying we are going to be the world's leading machine learning analytics for SaaS. And we just stuck with that. And then over time, you really begin to believe that you will be. And also, I just thought I'd show you this. You see this boat here? Does anybody know the America's Cup race, which is a big, huge sailing race? So Larry Ellis of Oracle believed, again, because he's a master of the universe, that he could win that race. And so he did. Brought the America's Cup back to the States. And there is his yacht, which happens to be in a man-made pond or lake that he put right in front of his offices in Silicon Valley. Because you do, right? That's what you do with your boat. So these guys, you know, masters of the universe, part of that ecosystem. But in terms of making it successful for us, we had to eke out every penny we had. And so the first thing we did was somebody said, look, my brother lives in Silicon Valley. Why don't you go stay with him? So I'm saying, but your brother doesn't know me. I'm a stranger. And not only that, it's not just me, it's my co-founder. So 2 strangers going to your brother's house to stay there. And they said, yeah, no problem. So we did. We went to a stranger's house. We moved in with them. Their kids were gone. They'd left lots of extra rooms. And we lived with them for 2 years. Because Americans are like that, right? Insane. But we ended up being brilliant friends. And the other things we did was, the only things that are not expensive in Silicon Valley are car rentals, petrol, and that's it. Okay? Everything else is expensive. Food's expensive. Accommodation's expensive. There is no public transport, really. You know, everything is expensive. So, for example, Lidl in Ireland, or Aldi, you would spend 3 times as much for the same groceries in Silicon Valley. So even groceries. So some of our little hacks were parking $20 an hour at least, maybe 40. And so Spot Hero is an app there that uses excess space in office buildings for really low-cost parking. Brilliant. And then for food, if you buy it in the farmers' markets, it's fresh produce. It's really low cost. And then also SaaStr, which is the biggest SaaS conference in the world, it costs like $3,000 for a ticket. And so a friend of ours told us that Twitter, SaaStr were looking for volunteers. So we volunteered. 3-day event, paid nothing, had to work for half a day. Wow, that wasn't really hard. And our job was to bring the investors on stage, which of course we hustled and ended up getting an investor. So, you know, there's lots of ways you can cut through. And of course, things like hiking are free. But, you know, essentially, you have to hustle your way through if you're going to make it there because it's so expensive. And we had to make that money really last a long time. Okay, so accelerators, they are basically the lifeblood of survival in Silicon Valley because, you know, you imagine we knew nobody other than the people that were strangers that we moved in with. So how are we going to build our network? Because the network is what happens over there. Everybody knows everybody. It's actually a very small community. And so there are lots of different kinds of accelerators. So you got to find the one that's right for you, that fits you, what stage you're at. And at that stage, we were really early on. You know, we were just beginning to spec out our product. We were talking to SaaS companies and understanding what their problems were so we could design the product around them. But if you look at the accelerators there, the big guys, Y Combinator, 500 startups, plug and play, nearly all of them will invest in you. So they'll give you 120 to 150,000 in exchange for 7% of your company. And then they will get you in front of mentors, they'll get you in front of investors, they'll train you, they'll really help you get to where you need to go fast. And Y Combinator and 500 startups now at this stage, even though they're for startups, in reality, they're startups that are further on because they're getting so much applications from people who already have traction that it's very hard to get into them. Now, we got into plug and play, and I'll tell you about that in a sec. But there's other ones that are very much your specialty, okay? Depending on if you're in a particular tech area, they're the ones that they're interested in, maybe fintech, medtech, or edtech. So for us, this is plug and play. And plug and play is the biggest accelerator in the world. And I'd love to say it was orthodox how we got in there, but it wasn't. What happened was the managing partner of Plug and Play saw us pitch somewhere else. He really liked our product, and the reason he liked our product is he'd invested in an awful lot of SaaS companies, and he couldn't get track of those metrics. He found it really hard to get the metrics out of them, and he knew our product could do it for us. So we spent a year there, no charge for offices, no charge for food. They fed us every day. It was incredible. It gave us that platform, and he helped us. Every 3 weeks he would work with us how to get access to customers, how to get to the right people. And it was really because he believed in us. And through that, we met so many other people who introduced us to other people. And also, an awful lot of investors or mentors or advisors want to see what Plug and Play is all about. So you can attract them to you to meet you there. They want to see what's going on. So that was a big, big kind of push for us to get somewhere and get some credibility, basically, that we weren't just anybody, we were Plug and Play. And if you see there's a huge amount of networking that goes on. So every Friday there's pizza, but every Friday there's also pitch day. So they can have big pitches where it's about a particular sector, or they can just have a general one. I just want to give you a tiny story about the pitch day. On pitch day, our first time pitching, we walk into a room, there's 60 people in the room, you've got your time slot, and we were third. So we look around the room to see who's there. Everybody's got grey hair. There's nobody there that doesn't have grey hair. And then mostly men. And they all seem to know each other. And what we realise is these are people who've either retired from being tech leaders or very successful in a C-level within a tech company. And this is their retirement, right? They don't bother playing bridge. They go off to hear what's going on with the younger technology companies, and they invest their money. So it's a really good ecosystem, and I think it's better than bridge. So these are our mentors. And so the reason I'm here is because of these people knowing Uppsala, knowing Upstart, and suggesting I come and speak. So you can see how these people just kind of spread their wings and give you so many contacts. And so this accelerator that this features here is called the Women's Startup Lab. So the Women's Startup Lab take a small round of equity again, but they give you much more in terms of advisors, okay? So you see me in the photograph with the guy with the glasses. That's Phil Libin, who was co-founder and former CEO of Evernote. So he spent 3 hours with us going through our product metrics. And again, he just gets paid nothing. It's just normal. They do this. And then we met down in the bottom middle here. Jeff, he is the product manager for LinkedIn. So they spent 3 hours with us. And there's only 10 in each batch. So you're getting a massive one-to-one help. And of course, that improved our product massively, improved our network, got us in front of investors. But also, all the 10 co-founders in our cohort, we all see each other through video cam every month to help each other with problems. And I think you need that, because it's lonely being an entrepreneur, right? And you need that cohort to kind of help you and understand and help you solve problems. So here's Plug and Play. You can see how massive. They've got offices all over the world. But what's really interesting is the Chinese, there's 9 offices of Plug and Play or accelerators in China, because the Chinese want to figure out to crack that ecosystem code. They want to understand how they can accelerate technology and growth and get entrepreneurs to come up with brilliant ideas. And this is how something like Plug and Play works, just in terms of the money. Okay, so in the middle, it's us startups. Okay, we're the ones with the ideas. We take risks. We're the innovators. And everybody wants to feed off that, and we want to feed off them. So as a startup, you want investment, you want customers, you want access to big corporate potential customers, okay? So we get that. On one side, you've got the angels, the guys with the grey hair, right? And they're there every Friday to invest in you, but also to give you the benefit of their knowledge. Then you get the VCs. They get their deal flow. Plug and Play puts you in front of the VCs, because the VCs don't know what the new technology is necessarily. So that's great for them. They get to see they're good companies. And then Plug and Play themselves will invest in the companies. That's great for them. They get to pick at the crop. And then the advisors want to be involved. And you need them because they've got experience you don't have. And then the partners sell their services to you as startups. It could be HR services. It could be lawyers. And then finally, the corporates want the new technology to bring it into their businesses, and they get access to you too. So there's money changing hands all the way through, and you're in the middle. So the champions we have is Josh here, who spoke here last year, who's an advisor for the last 2 years, Josh Crames from StackPath. The guy in the middle is Ali Reza. He's the managing partner of Plug and Play. Up on the right there is a woman called Sarah Fryer, who's CFO of Square. So all these people give us time every single week for nothing, right? And it sounds insane, but it's this whole ecosystem belief that if we all help each other, we all get better. If we all get better, Silicon Valley reinforces being the best place in the world for technology. That continues to attract investors, and it continues to attract people like us to continue to make the whole ecosystem work. And so, when we got there, we tapped into all these different companies to help us understand what metrics to build in our product. So all the VCs told us the metrics they wanted from the companies they were investing in. And then these companies, like Stripe, as you probably know, is an Irish-founded company. They're doing incredibly well. So they've given us access as partners to their customers. So the ecosystem speeds all that process up of you building your company and doing it quicker. Okay, and just the paying it forward, California is full of contradictions as well. Okay, so this is Steve Jobs. He got mentored, as you probably know, by Bill Hewlett and Bob Noyce from Intel and Hewlett-Packard. He also mentored Mark Zuckerberg and Larry Page from Google. And so they are forward-thinking, they're helping each other, they spend hours helping, they take the job of helping others incredibly seriously. They're into organic food, they're saving the planet, but you can also buy a gun when you go to get a bottle of whiskey or buy a bottle of wine, and there's a huge homeless problem in San Francisco. So it's full of contradictions, but it's a great atmosphere, a great place to be. So lawyering up. In the States, lawyers aren't just lawyers, right? They're actually business advisors and accelerators. So when you go in to get your lawyer, because you're going to need them to help you work your way through the minefield of legalities when you get your money, they can also introduce you to investors. So they really are business accelerators. But when you go into them, you interview them. They don't interview you because you want to see what kind of deal they're going to give you. Because a lot of them will give you either defer the fees completely until you raise money, and if you don't, it's tough for them, or they will actually give you free services. So you go to them and you figure out who gives you the best deal rather than the other way around. So finally, before I ask you if you want to ask me any questions, in terms of raising money, has anybody seen this before? It's the 0.9 matrix. Yeah? So the matrix says, this is what you have to, these are the boxes you need to tick at different stages in order to be attractive to investors. But in reality, not everybody ticks those boxes. It's really hard to tick those boxes. But some people get investments anyway. And the reason is because they're on the inside. They went to college in Stanford, okay? They're 26-year-old who graduated computer science. They're an engineer, okay? They worked in a group before who may have been successful. So you can imagine, I'm a female, I'm not 26, and I'm not a computer scientist. So you know that you fit outside that box, but what they love over there is grit and determination. And I think that's really what gets you. By using these networks, really, really understanding who it is you need to talk to, you can convince them to invest in you, but it's going to be harder. And when you see somebody, maybe with not such a great idea, getting funded because of other reasons, I wouldn't let it dishearten you. Just keep on going, right? So this is the final one. So we felt that we were getting nowhere. We were building the product out. We weren't really getting any investors sniffing around Cloud KPI. But we were getting interest from customers. And we felt, that what are we doing wrong? And then we met this woman, Catherine Fake, who's one of the founders of Flickr. And she said, look, do you feel like you're swimming in a sea of no's? And we said, yeah, that's exactly how we feel. We're swimming in a sea of no's. Everywhere we look, it's no, 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 no. And then she says, don't worry, there's a beach of yeses. One of these days, somebody's going to say yes, which they did. And then everything changes because everybody else starts to say yes. And that's what it's like. They're like lemmings. One person says yes, everybody believes in you. And so we got a very lucky break in that we won as a European company, the only European company to win a thing called Venture Clash in Connecticut, where you compete with 300 other companies to get investment. And we were the only European who got investment. And since that's happened, which happened just in October, very few weeks ago, then we've got lots of people saying yes. And now we're beginning to close the fund. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have at all. And by the way, please follow us at Cloud KPI. Happy to share these slides if anybody wants them, but I'd like to give back to you as well because I've got so many people helping me. So in any way I can help you, go ahead. So if anybody's got any questions. I'm afraid to throw this because I might hurt you. So hang on, I'll do one and then, yeah? Oh, see?
All right, so you stretched this 150,000 for 3 years.
Yeah.
amazing. In California, did you get to do any like other freelancing or consulting or something like this to support yourself?
Yeah.
How did you go through it?
Good question. At the beginning, we did freelance work because my background is I started a digital strategy agency, so there was some of that we could do at the very beginning. But then when things really started to take off, we knew that if we didn't dedicate ourselves to it, we'd fail. We just wouldn't get there. So we stopped. So for the last 2 years, we've done nothing except this.
Amazing. Thanks.
Okay.
Hey.
So, did you incorporate in the US, and when did you do that?
So the question was, did we incorporate in the US, which we did. So we have a Delaware C company, which is the easiest place to do it, right? A Delaware C, any lawyer will know in the States how to do that. So, but we also have the parent company is Ireland. And for this round, that's okay. But the next round, we'll have to flip up as the HQ being in the States. So you do need your lawyers, right? Anybody else?
Yes, so if you look at Silicon Valley today, you can see that they have a high number of successful tech companies. But what do you think other regions, such as that want to challenge Silicon Valley in the future, what should they do? Maybe politicians, but also companies.
Do you mean to get the Silicon Valley thing going somewhere else, other cities?
Maybe getting, more tech startups, more big international startups, Facebook, Google, all of them are from California. So maybe Europe wants to challenge that. And, we have some regions like this region here in Berlin and London with a lot of great tech scene.
Yes.
But we are still not on that level. So what else can we do?
I think the thing is to start attracting numbers, right? So how do you get investors to come to your area? How do you get the technology to come to where you are? And I think there's incentives that can be done in a region. So, for example, in Connecticut, where we've raised the money, in Connecticut, what they did is they said, we really need to get technology companies to come here. And so they put this 5 million fund together for 3 years to attract European companies to set up their US base there. And of course, that it's self-perpetuating then. As one comes, another comes. And so I think there's incentives that can be done to help that. And in Ireland, we did something where if you invest in a tech company, you get tax incentives as an investor. So there's lots of infrastructure things that you can do. And I think the psychology of helping one another is a big thing. Because, competitors speak to each other in Silicon Valley to share ideas. It's a very different psychology. Certainly to Ireland, where we're such a small nation, we kind of tend to keep everything to ourselves. But you have to kind of wipe that out if you're going to build a community. So lots of small things. Okay, thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking to you, and good luck for the rest of the conference.